The president just a few hours ago talking about the fact that he is planning to use the United States military and put them on the border of our country. The Congress will not give him the money to build the wall, so he's going to use a human wall instead. He's going to send the military to do what it does best, guard the border of this country. Frank Gaffney joins me on that note, founder and president of the Center for Security Policy. Frank, welcome back, and what do you think of the president's plan?
It's great to be with you, Lars, as always. I think it is an essential step, long overdue, and one that I hope will catalyze what is, let's face it, a more sensible, more cost-effective approach, which is not to have human beings, standing in place along all those miles of borders, but to have a proper barrier. And until that's built, and let's face it, the Democrats in Congress, and I have to say, I think probably some Republicans are intent on not letting it happen. The president is taking a necessary and sensible, immediate, and arguably very urgent step.
You know, it's interesting when I think about it, because I had a gentleman call me today and say, well, what are they going to do? What kind of force will they use? I said, I don't think they'll need any force at all. If you're a Mexican national or a Guatemalan who's intending to enter this country illegally, and you're coming across the desert between Mexico and the United States, and you come over a rise and you see Humvees going by and drones in the air and American military who are stationed there or patrolling that area, I think that might be a pretty good incentive to turn around and go back the other direction, figuring we're not going to be able to stop, we're not going to be able to penetrate this. And I think some of this, Frank, I may be wrong, but in the past, when there's been talk of amnesty and talk of more leniency toward illegals, we immediately see a flush of people who come toward our border, especially when times are economically good here, as they are. And when we see the opposite, when we hear about cracking down on the border, the flow seems to diminish. If you merely say we're going to station the military there and you start to do it, the word's going to go out pretty quickly. You can't get across the border. They're guarding it now. And I think that alone will provide a disincentive for people to cross.
Look, Lars, it's called deterrence. And you're absolutely right. Another formulation for it is peace through strength. I think this is a sensible thing to do, provided, and this is a big proviso, provided that the existing arrangements for allowing people to come to the country and request amnesty, or not amnesty, asylum is the word I'm looking for, asylum, that has to be fixed too. Because they can come right up to those military personnel. They're not going to shoot them, for heaven's sakes, but simply say, I'm here seeking asylum, and I have reasonable expectation of persecution or other kinds of, threats to my life if I go back. Unless we've signaled, and you're so right about this, a lot of this is signaling, unless we've signaled to the people who are coming that that's not going to be a get-in free card, not get out of jail free, get into the country free card, you're going to wind up having them, I think, probably still coming in some numbers. But again, the more we're indicating that this gig is up, they're not going to be allowed to play the kinds of games that they were encouraged to play during particularly the Obama years. I think it will have a very powerful deterrent effect.
Before we talk about John Bolton, just to comment on that, I'm not a lawyer and I'm not one of these guys who's an expert on this, but Frank, one of the problems has been the minute you get your feet into this country, you are eligible for a whole range of protections under the U.S. Constitution. There are a lot of people who think the Constitution only applies to citizens. It applies to everybody who's got their feet here. But you're in an entirely different situation when you're standing outside the country. As it's been pointed out by you and a lot of other people, no foreign national has a right to come to the United States. But if they manage to sneak in, once they're here, they can say, well, I want to appeal your decision, Judge, and I don't want to be sent back. And you can stretch that out for years. But if the U.S. military says, fine, you want to seek asylum? Great, we got a tent right over there. You're going to sit down and you need to make your case, and we'll have people interview. Form a line, and we'll be glad to talk to you. But you're not walking in and getting all those other rights you get just by being on the other side of the border. Convince us. And if that's the signaling we do, or say you need to go to a proper port of entry, a border crossing, and your claim will be evaluated, but you won't be allowed in pending the evaluation of your claim.
Amen.
That could make a big difference, couldn't it?
Absolutely. All the difference in the world. And that's what we need to be doing, for sure. But the president, let's commend him for taking an important first step. I'm so pleased.
Oh, and the left is absolutely going crazy right now. Why does the left wing in America hate John Bolton so much? You've written about this at the Center for Security Policy.
Because he is their worst nightmare. He is a serious, competent, articulate, skillful practitioner of the policies that we were just talking about, Lars. Peace through strength has been John's mantra as long as I've known him, which is going on 40 years. And to the extent that these are folks on the left, and let's face it, some of their allies, notably the Sharia supremacists, who have become so accustomed to having their way with America's national security policy, and for that matter, homeland security policy. Having somebody who can bring to bear the kinds of skills that I've just described and help the president achieve his stated objectives is just a disaster as far as they're concerned, hence the histrionics that we've been seeing ever since his name was announced as the new national security advisor. I think it's a godsend, and I believe that it has the potential to really help Donald Trump achieve during his first term what he set out to do when he ran and what we need him to do for sure.
You know, Frank, I want you to keep a close eye on what happens out of San Bruno, California, where the shooting happened we're coming up on 3 hours ago in San Bruno, California, at the headquarters of YouTube. All we know is that apparently a woman walked into a gathering, a party that was being held by Google, because of the relationship between Google and YouTube, and that she apparently shot her boyfriend at this party. He is still alive, but being treated at the hospital. She shot 3 other people, and then she apparently took her own life. I don't know whether she was wearing a headscarf because it was a good disguise or a way of concealing who she was. We don't know any of that right now, but I want to keep an eye on it because early on, a couple of hours ago, they were reporting there might be 2 shooters, a male and a female, and it immediately reminded me of San Bernardino a couple of years ago.
Amen. We've been down this road many times before, my friend. I hope this is not one of those occasions where it is, in fact, jihadism at work.
Absolutely right. Frank, thank you very much. Frank Gaffney with the Center for Security Policy. He's the founder and the president of that organization.